All right, everyone, welcome to Bites and Cents. I'm glad you were able to stay seated. So it seems that Kevin Hart has been catching some heat lately as he has been in the news in reference to some comments he made on a video podcast recently. We're going to get into that and I'm going to state my sense on it. But before we do, hit that like or subscribe button. And if you don't, no worries, just sit back and enjoy the video. All right. So what's going on with Kevin Hart? Well, apparently he made a statement about people in the hood are not smart enough to get a bank account. So what's going on with Kevin? Kevin Hart appeared on Grant Cardone's podcast. Grant Cardone, he's like a businessman, a financial guru, if you will. And he has like this video podcast and it looked like it was kind of like a show. I'm not too familiar with Grant Cardone. I have seen some of his, not really videos, but I've seen him in videos from like thumbnails or if he appear in one in like, say like a YouTube flash that's going by. But I've never watched any of his material. So basically he has a podcast and the podcast is called Power Players. And the title of the episode that Kevin Hart appeared on was called Producing, Promoting, and Owning a $100 Million Tour. So I wanted to give that in case you wanted to go take a look at it and view it in full. By the way, this particular video that, Kevin Hart is on, this podcast, is actually on YouTube. So Grant did upload the entire video on YouTube. So I want to give you that information so you can go and see it for yourself. But basically, he made some comments about that particular subject and some people just didn't like it. So let's take a look at what he had to say and I'm just going to give you my sense. Here we go.
Look in the hood, you hear about it. There's liquor stores and check cashing places because they know that the people in the hood aren't smart enough to open up bank accounts. They're going to get a check, they're going to cash it, and it's a liquor store right next to it. You're going to get your check and you're going to buy this liquor and then you're not going to have no more money. Let's just put that around them. Let's also put a bunch of shit that's easy and cash available. We don't want you to gain credit. We want you to be cash driven. That's how we keep the poor poor. It's not until you understand that you get out.
Well, what do you think about that? Those comments and what he had to say. So let me give my sense because I don't want to make this a long video at all. When I listened to it, and I listened to a little bit of the podcast, I didn't watch it in its entirety, but I did watch some of the podcast. And honestly, sure, he could have rephrased it better, but I did not take any offense to it whatsoever. I mean, I really didn't. Maybe it's just me, but I just didn't see what the big deal was. I got what he was trying to say. And I feel like, sometimes you could be speaking to someone and you'll be like, they or you're meaning that in a general term. But some people, for whatever reason, and I never could quite understand this, they would take it personally. And they think that they're insinuating like you're talking about them when you're really not. Sometimes you're just saying things in conversation or thinking out loud. And I think he was just kind of in the heat of the moment. I mean, I don't care too much for some of his stand-up comedy. To me, he's funny in movies, but he's okay in the stand-up. But he was in the moment. So he's going, he's talking fast. He's a fast talker and his mind is going. So when he was talking and referencing it, I completely understood what he was saying. It's not about the people not being smart enough. There's so many bright, smart people in the hood. I mean, I grew up in the hood. You have some of the greatest minds there. The problem is, and this is something that I feel strongly about with young people, is lack of exposure. When you don't have, or when you don't come from a background of, say, family or parents that have been exposed, they don't know. So there's only so much that they can show you and then going forward. So in the hood or in these particular areas, yes, there is a lack of financial literacy because there's been a lack of exposure to various ideologies. You're not exposed really to a lot of books. To me, I feel like even the vast amount of careers and jobs or vocational fields is there's a lack of exposure with that. In the hood or growing up or tend to live low income, you always want to be doctor, a lawyer, or say like an engineer. And there's so many different types of jobs and careers out there, being a biochemist, being an archaeologist, pilot, being, special deep sea divers. I mean, there's so many things in the world you can do that you just don't know. So if you're not exposed to those things, the last thing you're going to be thinking about and the last thing you're going to be exposed to is open up a freaking bank account. And, you also have to consider that a lot of people in the hood, they are aware of bank accounts. They are aware that they need to set up a bank account. But there's also a lack of trust in the system. And that's where I think people tend to have issues with. So it's not that, they're not smart enough. It's just that they have these issues within trust. Because let's be honest, in a lot of low income areas and a lot of people, they doing what they need to do to get by. Sometimes that entails, you kind of going through and kind of have to not rig the system, but the system so well that you utilize it certain ways. And so sometimes people feel like if I go out and start, get a bank account, I'm going to expose myself out there more to the government, and they'll be able to find more information about me, and it goes on from there. This is what I tell people: if you have a social security number, they already know who you are. It's as simple as that. To me, it's not even also about bank accounts. You have a lot of people in the hood that don't have bank accounts, or they have a bank account but they don't believe in doing online banking. If you got a bank account, you're going to have to do some online banking at some point in time. We're coming in a time where technology, it is not a luxury, it is imperative. And the way that society is transitioning to, the way the work culture is moving towards, you're going to have to know about technology. And I'm going to do a video about that because I find that our people and just even low income people, we really lack technology. Sure, we'll have like the latest phones and so forth, but know nothing about computers, don't understand certain technological advances and how important that these technological advances will play going forward. But getting back to what Kevin Hart said. So sure, he could have rephrased it, but I don't think he had any ill will. It wasn't condescending. I didn't see Kevin Hart as, belittling people. I mean, he came from an environment. I think he was being very passionate in that moment. It just saying like, we gotta wake up. That's really what that was about. It was a wake up moment. But instead of people, seeing it as a wake up moment, they saw it as, they got defensive and like, oh, you pointing me and what are you trying to say about me? So I feel like folks who just took it personal. Some people just take things way too personally. And it's like, it's not even about you. Just like if you get a bank account, it's not even about you. The government ain't just looking at you and you only. Sure, we know that there's things, systematically. I won't deny that. But at the same time, it's like, be knowledgeable about it before you condemn it or not want to do it. Because Kevin Hart talked about, in these areas, there's liquor stores, which I've seen. I know about that. You got liquor stores, you got payday loan stores. You also have, and then there's churches, even though I starting to see some of the churches kind of go away in these areas. You have all these things in these areas, and there is no growth, no progression among the people. There's growth within those businesses that's there in those neighborhoods, but the people, and they know to come in those areas because they know that, of course, we're the biggest consumers. That is just known. And we will not take the extra step to try to support businesses that should be supported. It's just, it's a catch-22 because, you got to go to where you can. That's why our eating is so unhealthy, because in these low-income environments, it ain't nothing but, you go into these stores in low income environments and you look at the produce section, the produce is terrible. It is terrible. And it has to come to a point where, we have to wake up and say, enough is enough. We don't deserve this. I'm going to either take my business or my money elsewhere, because you see what the end result is. That's just my opinion on it. I feel like instead of getting upset, let's take this as an opportunity to say, okay, you know what? I wasn't aware about it, or I never thought about it in that way, but I'm aware of it now. Or look at it as, that's a good point. I never realized that, because, you're in that area. And another thing that they done in a lot of the inner city schools, they eliminated economics from the classes. They eliminated social studies. They eliminated geography, and eliminated geography and economics was the worst thing. In school, it was considered boring subjects to us, but it was boring because we wasn't learning what we should have been learning. We wasn't really learning the material. You would have, I remember being in school, you would have substitute teachers. They could care less. They would just be sitting in the class. I remember one teacher doing her nails, could care less. So you wasn't being taught valuable information. You were just given bits. And so with that, it wasn't interesting. It wasn't fun. But taking away geography in schools, these people not knowing that there's a whole world outside of them, that there's a whole world that they can travel to, that there's a whole world outside the neighborhood and what they see every day. Because when you're in the hood, what you see every day, you think that's all there is to it. So you already put a limit on yourself. Some of the best education is traveling, really. Once you start to travel, go around other cultures and see how other people interact, that's where a lot of your education and forming of minds come from. Nowadays college is getting a bad rep, and it shouldn't, because college teaches you it is a university. So it teaches you about the world that's around you, how to interact with various races, being exposed to various races and ethnicities, and just learning about other cultures. But, a lot of that has just been eliminated within, I feel like, the American education system. And they took vocationals out of school. So it's a whole system to it. And when I say low income, it don't always include Black people. This is all different races, because as I've gotten older, I'm starting to see that there's certain things is more about class than race. Because when you see other ethnicities that's low income, they all doing the same thing. So that's my spiel. Let's stay prayed up. Bites and Sense.